Hey guys, Martino Garattoni here from Ne Obliviscaris and Ancient Bards, and you're watching RichardMetalFan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 112. Today's guest, we're talking to Martino Garattoni. Martino is a bass player from Italy. He plays with Ancient Bards, Chronicle Projects, and currently also plays with Ne Obliviscaris. And today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, what made him want to play bass, as well as going through the history of Ancient Bards, as well as him also a little bit of the Chronicle Project and him joining Ne Obliviscaris and the upcoming Ne Obliviscaris album Exile, which comes out March 24th through Season Mist Records. So without further ado, let's go talk to Martino. Ciao a tutti che con Martino Garattoni from Ancient Bards, Ne
Pretty nice.
Obliviscaris. Yes, grazie. So how are you doing today, Martino?
Thanks, man, for the effort. Yeah, I'm pretty good. Thanks. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I had to speak a little Italian just to impress you. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks
Yeah.
for the effort.
Yeah, could thank Google Translate for that. Yeah. So kind of the format is I want to do like a rundown of your catalog as well as talk about like your journey as an artist from where you started to now. But before we go into that, I want to dive right back into the very beginnings. What were the first bands that got you into metal, made you want to slap at a bass?
Okay, so I think don't have a band that actually made me switch to bass. So the story was this. Basically, I have two sisters. One of them was and still is a musician. And at the beginning, I was like 11, I think, or something like that. And I started playing guitar randomly, and then 1 year and a half later, so around it was I think 13, she needed just a bass player to do stuff, right? We were just shitty playing everything we were doing, but that's what she needed. So I just switched for fun. Didn't absolutely know what I was doing, of course, because I didn't know how bass works, and that was just my first approach to it, and never left it. The first year were a little bit weird because I still didn't know what to do exactly, but at some point I got the fundamentals in, and that's it. Around 16 or 17, I started learning for real. I think that's the first moment I realized, okay, I'm playing bass and not anything else.
Yes, all right. And tell me, yeah, because a lot of people know you from Ancient Bards and Ne Obliviscaris. Were you in any bands before you started up Ancient Bards?
Not actually, because I started with Ancient Bards at the very beginning of them. So I was like 15 or something. I met the Daniele, the keyboard player there, and we started the band together. Basically, he's still the main. It was and still is the main songwriter of the band. But yeah, we started everything together, then found people. So that was actually my very first band, more or less. Then I obviously did a lot of the different things, but that was actually the first one.
All right, and tell me about like that. That I think your first release was the trailer of the Black Crystal Sword Saga, which is a little demo from 2008. Hey, was that like something to just send to like record labels to hopefully get signed?
Yeah, yeah, that was the main goal, and also like to get a few gigs, right? Because it's difficult to get gigs without any material out. So yes, both things. For both goals, we needed something to record something, and that was like the the first thing that came out of our hands, and yeah, I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, because
Luckily.
yeah, I was trying to find like the demo because I know it's like I guess it's like some older versions of some of the songs that would be recorded for the debut. I was trying to look it up before the
Yes.
interview, and I couldn't find like anything about it.
No, I think we didn't print many copies, and I think I don't even have it. Probably, I think I lost it at the beginning,
Oh
and
wow.
then, of course, we don't have many copies around, so I might have lost it completely.
Oh damn. So of course, I think you were playing locally around Italy, and of course you got signed to Limb Music, which I heard is like a small label in Germany. How did they find Ancient Bards?
Yeah, so the thing was this. Daniele and I at the time were huge fan of Rhapsody, that now are Rhapsody of Fire, but
Yeah.
whatever. And so we wanted to play that kind of music at the time, and so our Daniele's main goal was to follow kind of their story, and most of the main, I think the first five releases of Rhapsody are with Limb. And Limb at that time was a big label actually. Now it is small, but at the time I think I'm talking about the 90s, I think, or the late 90s, something like that. It was a big label for power metal, for heavy metal in Germany, and so we tried to hit them up, and it worked because when we approached them, they weren't as big as before, but still working with the old stuff that they were still selling, of course. So they had a huge past, so a little bit of money to invest, and not too much, obviously. But but yeah, and that it started with them, and it went fair, I guess.
Yeah, and tell me about like the making of the debut album, The Alliance of the Kings, the Black Crystal Sword Saga Part 1. What was like the thought process going into making the debut album?
We were just extremely excited, very young. We wanted to show off, right? So just very not very thought tones. So the tones are a little bit could be better, right? And the orchestra too. Like Daniele was at as his beginning with orchestration, so he wasn't very expert on those, but still it came out pretty good as a power metal album. Then we moved, as you can hear, probably moving forward to the other albums, the orchestration becomes a little bit more epic, more cinematic, while at the beginning was like straight power metal.
Yeah, I still think it's a great debut. Like I remember like hearing like Prelude and then The Birth of Evil, which has the you like little bass lines in between, which I think is another one of my
Yeah.
favorite songs. Like that whole album, there's something about like the debut album that has like the charm.
Yes, absolutely. Every band does that thing because I think you can hear in most of the bands with the debut album when they're not as not big at all. You can hear like the excitement. You can hear the hope for doing something right, and the energy that they put into that because it's 100% everything they have, even if it's not too much, but it's still pretty good. You can hear all of that, and then maybe some bands keep that. Some other bands maybe just slow down on that because they feel that the effort they put in is not exactly what they get back. But that's a sad story in all the music industry, right?
Yeah, totally. I agree. And kind of moving on with the next album, Soulless Child. Usually with like the debut album, you have like your entire life and you write it and it's out, and then there's a lot of hype with it. And then there's always like that pressure to follow up. Did you felt like pressure to follow up the debut going into Soulless Child?
Nah, not at all. Also because I was really young and very excited, so that didn't change much. I think it was uh 17, 18 while working on the debut album,
Oh
and
wow.
20 when it was when we did Soulless Child. So I I wasn't thinking, right? I
Right.
wasn't thinking at all.
Right. And I just think it's also like a quick turnaround around because at least literally like a year later, did you like started writing for Soulless Child right after the debut it was released?
Uh, kind of, because as you can hear, and as mentioned before, actually, most of the songs that you hear on the demo were older version that we put into the Alliance of the Kings, right? And so when we had the debut, Alliance of the Kings was already written, right?
Yeah.
So when Alliance of the King came out, Soulless Child was basically already done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So it was like there's that time that the label needs to put out some material, and seeing that we of course at the beginning we didn't tour, we just did a few gigs here and there, so there wasn't any time put into live shows and into bigger things. So all the time that we had was put into the records, right? So yeah, it was already done
Yeah.
before even getting out the first one.
Yeah. And when Soulless Child was released, did you like start touring outside of Italy?
Sorry.
Right. When the album when Soulless Child was released, did you like start touring outside of Italy for the first time, or was it still just local?
Sorry, I'm getting a
Yeah.
little bit confused because the connection isn't working perfectly.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll try again. So, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I'll try again. So when Soulless Child was released, did you start like touring like outside of Italy for the first time, or was it still just local?
Still local. I don't remember exactly when we started going outside. I think at least after the third record,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and which is a new Dawn ending, which laid me right into there. And I know there was like a
Exactly.
3 year gap between Soulless Child and a new Dawn ending. Did you really wanted to like take your time to like hone your craft when it came to a new Dawn ending?
Uh, n- I don't remember what happened with that one. I just think we didn't take too much time, but not even went too fast as we did for Soulless Child. And at that time, obviously, we didn't have the material ready before, right? So when Soulless Child came out, it wasn't like the Alliance of the King that we already had the material ready, but we had to prepare that. So writing session and then all the other things. And recording and stuff. So it came out through 2 or 3 years after, I think, something like that. I think it's 2 years and a half, but the years are obviously 2011 because it came out in late 2011, and the other one came out in early 2014,
Yeah.
something like that. If I'm not mistaken, because I don't remember correctly.
Yeah. I know a new Dawn ending came out in 2014, and Child came out in 2011.
Hmm.
Yeah. And kind of like breaking off from Ancient Bards for a sec, I know in 2015 you did a thing with the Chronicles project, and you did an album called When Darkness Falls in 2015. Tell me a little bit about that, because I don't think nobody really talks about that.
Sorry, you said what happened in 2015? I
Y-
forgot.
Yeah,
No,
you
sorry, I didn't hear that.
yeah, you did the Chronicles project with and you did an album When Darkness Falls. But I was curious about
Ah,
that.
yes. So this guy, Malte Radke, German guy, I think he's a keyboardist and composer, of course. He hit me up because he heard of me on Ancient Bards to do this like studio project with a lot of different musicians. And I think he hit me up very early before 2015. I think straight after Soulless Child or something like that. And so I was at the beginning of my career with that kind of genre, so I was very excited and joined him to do this record. I think it's pretty nice, actually. Very incredible vocalists there.
Yeah,
Uh, and yeah, at some point it came out. I think it's with Limb. Yeah, probably.
yeah, and yeah, it's definitely really different from, of course, Ancient Bards. It's a lot more melodic and very powerful, and also very has a little bit of like progressive in there as well.
Yeah, it has a more power progressive vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then kind of going back in the Ancient Bards, I know the most recent album was Origin, the Black Crystal Sword Saga Part 2, to it almost like a decade after like part 1. On what made you guys decide to do a part 2, and what sort of like the reason why it took almost like a decade between part 1 and part 2?
Okay, so the the idea of doing a part two and what's after that is all in Daniele's head, because he's the one writing all the story and concept about that. So um, it's already written basically. It was already written at the beginning, at least the main ideas of that. So the part two was already in his head. It took a little bit too long from a New Dawn ending, because for some, I think, personal issues that some of us had, but not with each other. Not nothing bad with each other, just personal life issues. So we took a little break to do other things, and then came back at that. Also, because there's no rush, especially when you don't tour.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't like half-ass anything. You got otherwise people will smell that shit like a mile away.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and I still think it like the latest album is still great. Like I remember like the narration is stronger than ever. Especially like the album artwork is amazing and the music is just great. And I think honestly that's probably like the best Ancient Bards album to date.
I actually agree.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. And being as it's now getting close to almost 4 years since the last Bards album, have you all started working on the next album?
Yeah, it's still in the works, but obviously with COVID and those things, priorities in people's lives in the band were a little bit changed, of course. So some people in the band uh, got kids, some other got different jobs. So it's a little bit too slow the process for a new album, but it's still in the making. So it's
Awesome.
gonna it's gonna come at some point, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm looking forward to it, man. Man, I definitely like it. Like Ancient Bards. You guys seriously deserve more recognition, and I'm hoping maybe one day you all would tour the states. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's not gonna happen, and I almost can tell you that for certain, because it was already difficult to put us in the touring game before COVID because of personal different choices, of course, because anyone has his own life and his own priorities, but also because touring at the beginning when you have to push it, it's expensive, right? So if you cannot afford to invest into that, you might have to wait the right situation. And instead of waiting for the right situation, we got again fucked by COVID. So the small amount of shows that we were doing were cut to zero because of the pandemic, and now we basically chose, because of what I told you before of the different choices, to probably not play a show ever again. We'll see how it goes,
Yeah,
but probably not gonna happen.
yeah. Just gotta wait for the stars to align.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, kind of like wanted to break off the topic of Ancient Bards. Of course, I wanted to talk about how you ended up joining Ne Obliviscaris, because I know we mentioned before we started rolling. I've had Tim and Zen on, and I know though apparently they were looking for new bass player auditions, and I guess they found you. How did they you get to hook up with like Tim and Zen and Matt and the rest of the guys?
So it was pretty simple actually. At the beginning, it was spring 2017. Yes, spring 2017. Uh, One guy that knows me hit me up, a bass player, I think. He sent me this link for this audition. I was pretty free at the moment, so I was like, yeah, let's do it for fun. I didn't even know the band. That was just interesting, right? Interesting to have a new challenge, to play something nice, to play something interesting on bass and different. And so that's what I did at the beginning, right? Pretty easy. Um, After that, it took a while for them to let me know something, and I was obviously much more busy with my main job at the moment, and so I didn't I didn't care much. And at some point, I think it was July or August in 2017, I was like, hey, can you guys let me know? Because in 3 days, I have to leave for a month for work, right? Because in the summer, I play a lot of like private gigs, weddings, and stuff like that. That, of course, pays well. So I was like going on in Sardinia. That's an island here in uh, in Italy, very fancy island, to do that job. And
Wow.
3 days before that, hit them up and told them, "Hey guys, can you let me know? Because I have to leave, and then when I'm there, it's gonna be much more difficult to set up everything if we're gonna do something." And they were, "Yeah, okay, this is intravenous. Do this one too." And I was, "Fuck me, Dad. It's just 3 days." And that's what happened. So I did the audition for intravenous too, but in 3 days and 2 days. And I think they got surprised by the fact that it was done in 2 days, and I think that's the main reason why I got the job.
Yeah, I still
And
one of my favorite songs, by the
after
way.
that, yeah, it's pretty nice. Yet. um, and after that, I went to do my job in Sardinia and came back after that, prepared all documents and stuff to go on the first tour with them. That was in the US in autumn
Yeah,
2017.
and I was at that show in Atlanta. We played with Legion, and my buddy's band actually opened for you guys. That was the first time I got to see you play on stage with the band. What was that like playing in the US for the first time? Were you like kind of like nervous?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. No, Atlanta, I think it wasn't, it was a little bit far from the beginning of the tour. The beginning of the tour, yes, made me very nervous, but Atlanta, I think it was already in a good. I was a little bit more set with the band, so it was a little bit easier. And yeah, pretty good, nice tour, nice everything. I like the people a lot. Most difficult thing in that tour was learning how Australians talk.
Yeah, they're like, "Good eye, mate."
Yeah, it took me 3 weeks to understand what Dan and Matt were saying, because their accent is pretty thick.
Yeah.
Instead, Zen and Dima have a more like nice accent. You can kind of understand everything they say, but the other two,
Yeah.
pretty hard, especially for like me. That before that tour, I was still I had a little good English, but not that good. Now, obviously, it's getting better
Yeah, and you sound good,
with
by the
the
way.
years, with the practice with them. Yeah, the accent is still there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember when I was a kid, especially hearing like people from different countries trees talk. I was always wondered, because I was young, like a kid at the time. I was like, I used to think, why do they talk so funny? And then, of course, my mom had explained it's an accent. I was like, what? And of course, now I'm older. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. And I always thought it was like kind of weird when I was like a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty weird.
Yes, yeah. So I know on that tour, of course, at the time you were a session guy, but then of course you eventually became full time, which honestly I kind of knew it would happen, and so I wasn't too surprised. But I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it went well. We did they asked me to join like straight after that tour, more or less. I think if it wasn't straight after that, it was straight after the second tour that was in Australia. So it was pretty quick, but yeah, we matched pretty well. And I think probably, if I'm not wrong, I don't remember this correctly, but if I'm not wrong, I think the first time they were sure about that was when we started working on new material, on new songs. And I gave them a riff that I wrote that should be in the new record, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken about that riff. Yes, yes, it's there. So yeah, yes, probably the with that they kind of made sure that I was good also on the writing part. Good. I don't know if I'm good. You'll be the judge when you hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good for them, and so yes, that's why they asked, and then we did a lot more tours, and then also in that case got fucked by the pandemic.
Yeah.
But again, here we are.
But I'm looking forward to like the new album Exile, which it literally comes out like the day after my birthday. Great birthday present, right?
Nice, nice.
Nice. Yeah, but I've already heard like the first single Equis. Really bold move to like release like a 12 minute song as like this first single, and I just think the video itself is just great.
Well, with us, I don't think that's a choice.
Yeah.
You don't have shorter songs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's gotta be harder, especially if you have now 4 albums under your belt. It's gotta be like harder to like put like a set list to get together because you have like long songs that range from like 6, 7 minutes and longest being like 12 minutes.
Yeah, even more. And yes, it's always hard to do a set list right, but fortunately, team manages some of these things, most of these things actually, and he's pretty good with set list because he always writes down everything he does, and so if he, for example, if we tour the US and we do a set list, he makes sure that when we come back, we have not a totally different set list because the main stuff has to be there, but that we do different things so that the people that comes to our shows always gets something different in terms of songs, and they don't get bored from the fact that they heard the same thing again.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like, and then you also gotta try like to fit like a like. Do you ever try to like fit like a song from like each album, or is it just like try to like I don't know. It's hard to describe really. It's as you know, it's hard to make a set list.
Yeah, it is hard. Basically, obviously, you kind of have to play. You must play the huge hits, right? So if you know, for example, you know Plague, right?
Yeah, great song.
Okay, you cannot really not play that one,
Yeah,
really,
because there would be a
right?
riot if
So
there wasn't.
that yeah, exactly. Plague is missing from the set list. What? Okay, so I think you have to play that, but of course, and that works for some other songs. But and then all the time that you have left, you use it to play something new, play something different that you haven't played. You just have to adjust the set list with that. And usually we do like 1 hour and a half or something like that. So you take all the time that you have, split it with stuff that you have to do and stuff that you want to do, and play with that.
Yeah, and tell me about like the recording process for the new Ne Obliviscaris album because I know it took like a long time because I remember hearing like for your old drummer Dan like did like the drums in like Nashville, but I think he finished right when the pandemic really just took into full effect.
Yeah, that was pretty a pretty weird situation because he went there, and then while he was there, all the news were about countries closing up, especially us in Italy, that we did that first, probably. um, and basically, yes, I made it in time, and I was about to fly over to Australia. And the same day, they told us to stay home. So I woke up at my flight was like at 6 a.m. and the airport is like 1 hour and a half from here. So I woke up at 2 a.m. just to check the messages from the boys because they told me, yeah, it's not worth it. Stay home, because the chances were, so I had a layover in Dubai and then arrive in Melbourne, right? So the chances were I arrive in Dubai, they keep me in the airport and send me back, or I arrive in Dubai and then Melbourne, they keep me in the airport and send me back. So
That
every
would be a
choice
shit show.
was a little bit fucked. Yeah, so I just stayed home because that's what he told me to do, and that was the smartest choice, of course. But the plan was to record everything in Australia all together, with Mark Lewis, that's the producer, coming to Australia too to record us. But that didn't happen, of course. So we just waited it out. The first lockdown here was like 2 months, 2 months and a half. So as soon as that finished, it was the summer. So in the summer, obviously, the virus are a little bit more chill. I booked a studio of my friend here that's pretty good. He did all the Ancient Bards album and stuff like that. So I booked a studio with him, recorded all the bass on dance drums and the pre-production guitars, and then sent the bass to them. Then I think Matt and Benji recorded the guitars at home and sent them to Mark Lewis to reamp them. And then the other guys, I don't know what they did for vocals, if they went to a studio or if they did it at home.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah, well, I know.
Forgot.
Well, I know when I
But yeah,
interviewed Tim, he had like a
that's
little
the thing.
studio
And
in his
then Mark
house.
Lewis did everything else, of course, and that's sorry.
Yeah, I know
It's
that.
it's pretty.
Sorry.
The delay is very long.
Yeah, I have to wait. But but when I interviewed Tim, I know he had like a little vocal studio in his place.
Yeah, that's what he had to do, and that actually sounds pretty good in the end. At the beginning, like he had to adjust a lot of things. He had to ask Mark Lewis for a few adjustments, but the result is amazing. So now he can do everything from there, and in some ways, this situation helped us improve our settings to do better on many aspects, but it wasn't absolutely needed.
All right. And being as Exil is like your first record with the band, did you like listen to like the other albums and figure out, okay, I need to do this, or did like you wanted to try to like do like your own thing?
It came out naturally to do a little bit of what you said. So, of course, I was thinking that, okay, this is Ne Obliviscaris, so I need to make sure it sounds proper Neo, but at the same time, I didn't force myself too much on kind of copying them, because it doesn't have to be that way, right? It's progressive metal, so you can kind of do whatever you want. And that's what I try to do. And as long as the boys are happy with that, I'm happy too, because I like very much everything I brought on that. And if I see that they approve that 100%, that's great.
Awesome. And as a bass player, I know you've heard like plenty of the bass player jokes and memes and stuff, because I know bass also playing has not just emphasis on rhythm, but they also a little bit of melodic too. Do you ever try to link with what the guitars are doing with the melody and what the drums are doing with the rhythm when it comes to bass playing, or just what's like your approach to playing bass?
So it usually depends on if I write the riff or if I don't write the riff and I write only the bass line. Because if I write only the bass line, I just hear what's happening and then try to figure out what's the best solution for that, right? And most of the time, I try to stick with the drums, even if I have a melodic approach, because I come from that type of school, right? And locking from pop music, right? So I need to lock with the drums. I need to do my job first, that is a bass player, and then I can also do all the melodic things. But yeah, bass player first, and then if I sorry, If
Okay.
I instead write the music, so if I write the riff, I don't write only the bass, of course, I tend to write also guitars and drums. So in that case, I would start with just an idea that probably doesn't even contain the bass, right? Maybe it's just guitars and drums. Sometimes it depends, right? So it could be that I write guitars and drums and then add the bass later, and it could be kind of the same things that the guitar does, or completely different, or I write everything at the same time because the idea comes that way, right? It depends.
And awesome. And kind of, I also, because I'm a kind of a gear nerd, I'm always curious, like, what's like your setup? Like, what kind of basses that you play, like strings, pedals, amplifiers? Or I'm always curious about like your kind of rig.
That's actually very, very easy. So basses right now it's Carillion basses. Benji got the same stuff
Oh, wow.
from this guy from the UK
That looks
and
fucking
made the
awesome.
stuff very sick, incredibly sick. Yeah, yeah,
Damn.
really good. This is what I do for Neo and for some of the stuff I do, but of course, you always need in your life this baby.
Yeah.
You cannot play without a Fender. So
Yeah. Number
also
one
this
rule for
one,
bass players.
it's required, and all the other. Sorry.
Yeah, saying that that Fender bass is like you gotta play it. It's like number one rule for bass players.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you don't have a jazz bass at home, there's something wrong in your bass playing. And that's my rule, at least.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so these are my instruments, and then some other random things. Um, in terms of pedals, with Neo especially, there's almost nothing because I use a preamp and a compressor before the preamp, and that's it. That's basically it. Then I go straight to my to the system. We don't use amps, so it's all in-ear monitors, and that's it. Pretty easy. And now I switched to a multi-effect pedal that's the Line 6 HX Stomp. Yes, that one that can do a lot of things. But with Neo, of course, I'm just gonna use it for compressor and preamp, and that's all I need with that situation. For my personal things, then I'm gonna use a little bit more pedals, but not too many. Really, it's just very simple stuff. I like it clean as it is, and I don't. I prefer to hear the tone that comes from the bass and from me, and not anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And kind of wanted to wrap things up a little bit. What's next for Ancient Bards? I know you mentioned before you start slowly working on the next album, and I know I'm looking forward to seeing you with Ne Obliviscaris on the tour in the fall with Beyond Creation and Persephone. Is just anything else you'd like to plug?
Yeah. I don't have many plans with those situations right now. I mean, with Ancient Bards, that's exactly what I mentioned before. That's just the new record that has to be released, and I don't know when, sadly. But yeah, that's the plan. And not many plans on that way. With Neo, of course, there's many many plans. This has to come out soon with all the tours and stuff. But at some point, we're gonna just keep writing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, do all our things that we love. And that's it. I think at some point, if I find the courage, I'm gonna also write some instrumental stuff for myself, just for the pleasure of doing it.
Nice.
But that's still in the closet, so we don't know. I don't know if that's gonna happen. So we'll see.
See, it's so awesome. Before you go, I just want to thank you for your time, Martino. No, it's just any final words you want to say as like a thank
Thank
you
you.
to close this out.
Uh, Not particularly. Enjoy life and have fun, guys. It's all you need.
Neat. Awesome. So everybody, Martino Garattoni from Ancient Bards and Ne Obliviscaris. See you next time.